Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining today's call. My name is Alyssa Cortez, and I'm the Communications Specialist with Clean Energy for America. Clean Energy for America is an organization built by and for the clean energy workforce. We advocate for federal policies and investments to help grow the clean energy economy and increase consumer access across the country. Our call will be an intimate yet impactful conversation about the clean energy transition and the investments of clean energy in Native communities. CE4A decided to host this call to learn from some tribal leaders in the clean energy sector about the life-changing work they are doing in their local communities. We were thoughtful about the timing of this event. We were only 4 days away from Indigenous Peoples Day, a date dedicated to the commemoration of Native American history and culture. We at CE4A believe that amplifying the work and voices of Native communities is incredibly important, and we want to thank you all for joining us today. Today, I have the privilege of introducing two leaders that are doing some amazing work and are at the forefront of bringing clean energy solutions to Indigenous communities. So joining us today is Cody Two Bears and Brett Isaac. Cody is a member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and inspiring voice behind Indigenized Energy. As the founder and executive director of Indigenized Energy, Cody is actively helping tribes develop long-term energy plans that will enable a just transition to renewable energy. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Cody to say a few words about himself and the work that Indigenized Energy is doing.
Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks for inviting me. Thanks for Clean America, thinking of us here, of Native Americans that are, doing the good work here in this just transition with clean energy into America. Just super excited for our partnership and our collaboration with Clean for America as we move forward. So thank you for allowing me and my organization to be on this call. My name is Cody Two Bears. I'm the founder and executive director of Indigenized Energy. Indigenized Energy was kind of established in 2017 because of the No DAPL movement that happened in my community there in Cannonball on Standing Rock, where all the protests went down. I was the tribal leader there during that time from 2013 to 2017. Really got the chance to see a lot of tribal people come to my community. I think we've seen about 350 plus tribal nations come to my community there. Got to visit with a lot of tribes through the country, organizations all over the world, and really seeing a similarity around energy extraction and how that really affected indigenous cultures all over the world, native tribes within our country here, how that's affected them, and really kind of propelled me since to get out of politics and just really focus on nonprofit work to bring energy sovereignty to tribes that really need the most, but most importantly to do it in a way that they see fit. So Indigenized Energy really just focuses a lot on kind of where the tribes really need a lot of support and help in. And a lot of that's technical assistance, some of that's grant writing. Some tribes don't know how to, or some tribes don't have the capacity or the funding to have a grants department within tribes. So we help, pursue grants for tribes. Also, technical assistance is important, but education and training is one of the most important things that we do. We work directly with tribal colleges. Capacity building is really, I think, where we need to really focus on, and helping tribes create sustainable plans. Also, planning is a big part of that for tribes too, because we don't want to just be project based and deploy a bunch of projects in Indian country and then leave it up to the tribes to kind of figure it out or have that be a burden on them. We want to make sure that what we're creating moving forward with all these great opportunities that's out there for tribes to really harness those opportunities, but making sure that we're doing it in a respectful way and also in a way that makes sure that we're setting up tribes for success. So that's just a little bit about Indigenized Energy and kind of what we're doing. And one quick highlight of our work is we got awarded $136 million for the Solar for All initiative, which we're going to deploy in the northern part of the northern states tribes there of our coalition. That's really going to bring a lot of residential solar and battery and electrification in these homes moving forward. So we're pretty excited about the work that we're doing here at Indigenized Energy and the future that's yet to come with a lot of the stuff that's yet to happen. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us and for sharing that. So we're also going to I'm going to introduce Brett Isaac. Brett is the CEO and founder of Navajo Power. Brett has been a trailblazer in clean energy development on tribal lands. Navajo Power is committed to building a team of mission-driven individuals focused on developing renewable energy solutions that generate real economic benefits for tribal partners. Brett's vision is creating pathways for sustainable long-term economic prosperity through clean energy initiatives that respect tribal sovereignty and cultures. Brett, I'm going to let you share more about yourself and Navajo Power.
Thank you, Alyssa. Yeah, to everybody, my name is Brett Isaac. Kiani Nishna Shihin Bashashin is Anidash Yara Tomana Shinella. I grew up on the Navajo Nation. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation and founded Navajo Power in 2018, really as a response to the closure of one of the largest coal-fired power plants in the United States, the Navajo Generating Station. Transition was always a hot topic in our communities, but I really didn't see, a lot of folks working on the foundational infrastructure work, like creating, the vessels and the opportunities. Because I think the one thing we're realizing in a lot of our work is that these projects take a lot of time, and in these communities, there's some unique circumstances, particularly relationships with energy. Energy's been somewhat traumatic for a lot of indigenous communities. The extractive industries left a lot of scars, in their wake. Whether it was, on the Navajo Nation, they still have an issue with abandoned uranium mines, from the Cold War era. Things like that are constant reminders that, being involved in the development process is just as crucial as creating spaces for equity and ownership. And that's what we created Navajo Power to do, is to do development better. We wanted to establish a high benchmark for how stakeholders work and consult with tribes and communities. And we wanted to also work on ways to strategically inject ourselves into these processes. I formed Navajo Power from my reservation, from my homeland, as a kind of stubborn, commitment to showing the rest of my community, particularly the youth in my community, that those barriers that we perceive are overcomable. Those things that we can do, and we can coordinate all of our resources and experiences to take on these challenges, but it's going to require a lot of collaboration, and it's going to require a lot of, just getting outside of our comfort zones, because these spaces require so much, unique, like, financial understanding and technical understanding, that bridging those gaps is really what we created Navajo Power to do. And as an example of our work, we're developing about 3 gigawatts of large infrastructure projects today. And we're looking at catalyzing the federal incentives coming to expand that. The goal being to hit 40 gigawatts by 2040. And it's an ambitious goal, but we're ambitious people, and we've survived quite a bit. And we're, really determined to make our presence known in this space. And as an example of one of our stakeholder engagements, we have a sister company called Navajo Power Home, which focuses on residential off-grid customers on the Navajo and Hopi nations. And it's focusing there because historically we've built infrastructure that has exported resources on our homelands as the basis for everything that we've done. Rarely have we started with an initiative that prioritizes powering people where they don't have it, finding solutions for that. And Navajo Power Home, in about 24 months of existence, has powered about 300 homes. And we just signed, we just had a press event about a month ago where we had a partnership with Q Cells North America and the Department of Energy, to use all these collaborations to power 1,000 homes by the end of 2025. So we're really excited about what we can do in this space, and we're really excited about all the different incentives that the federal government, that the Biden administration and others have been, really key and critical in making sure that tribal access is a part of the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brett, for sharing that. And that really brings me to my first question here as we kick off the discussion around the amazing work that you all are doing. And I also want to allow Cody to speak on this as well. So that's my first question. How have the tribal energy investments from the Biden-Harris Clean Energy Plan really impacted your communities and local businesses? I know you touched on it a bit, but if you want to expand, that would be great.
I guess I'll kick it off. We we were really involved early on in shouting from whatever rooftop we could find that there's got to be a different way in deploying capital in tribal communities. The programs that have been established really haven't been effective, mainly because entrepreneurs and a large segment of the capable body, including organizations like Indigenize Energy, really didn't have access to the capital pools that would be required to make a substantial dent in these initiatives. The federal programs, such as the Building Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, have kind of created a centering focus in terms of like how these monies can benefit communities. There's still a lot of work we have to do in strategizing around how to bridge that capital and how to blend that with other forms to make sure that one, the cost of capital is affordable, but the other is that these programs usually require some sort of private unlocking and some sort of private match. And that's what we've been working on, trying to one, help bring and bridge the gap with by using impact investment in the philanthropic world, but the other is bringing the technical resources to communities so that they understand the value of the investment if it's something that they have to pay for with their own resources. So all those things considered, we've been very appreciative that these programs are helping to fund and finance everything from rooftop solar and off-grid and batteries in homes. And we're working on looking at how we can take that investment and create equity in our large infrastructure projects. So different revenue streams for tribal communities and governments that can invest alongside your traditional tax equity partners in these projects that we're developing, which could, the potential we believe is hundreds of, gigawatts of potential on tribal lands, but that's just because the potential's there doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. And we got to do a lot of work to get to that place to be able to deploy that capital and utilize it.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Cody, if you would like to share some insights, please feel free.
Yeah, I think the IRA really is a game changer for Native Americans. When I start to learn more about what the IRA entailed and how it could really benefit tribes, was really the first time I ever thought to myself, because I grew up in a community that was the lowest status community in my state, one of the top 10 poorest counties in the country. And I never ever saw my community as being investable, right? And as I read through the IRA, for the first time ever, I got excited about that, because if you really look at the legislation and what they passed and how that can really impact tribes, the benefits of these opportunities is enormous. For the first time, I think it allows tribes to actually take ownership of a lot of their infrastructural projects, whether it's microgrids, whether it's trying to become their own tribal utility, or just anything on that energy sovereignty path. It really allows that to unleash that a lot more easier and to make that goal a lot more feasible financially. Some of the benefits of this is really, I call it a direct pay program, because I know we talk about tax credits and different things like that in the past, and how this one is kind of uniquely different is that once the project is completely finished, while using leveraging the dollars or taking a loan out of it, obviously you can't use grant dollars to capitalize on the IRA, because that's double dipping. But if you use leveraging or loans from Brinks or native CDFIs or anything like that, that can contribute to helping a tribal community around green energy, a lot of these tribes can get back 40 to almost 50% back through a direct pay program, which is never heard of before. And it's really exciting to know that after the completion of the project, you can get that money back, put it directly to the principal of the loan, and then now you only owe half of the loan, right? So that guidance of energy sovereignty is a reality in communities where I come from, and a lot of Native American communities moving forward. But I think the realities that we really face too is now that finally, Native Americans are investable in this space of renewable energy. The other challenge of it really is to really educate these tribes on how the IRA could be incorporated, right? How can we utilize the IRA? Because when you go into a low income status community, and that's probably a tribes that really aren't really equipped to take loans. They're not used to taking loans or taking on those loans. So tribes sometimes need to have a little bit more education around how that's going to work, financial models that make sense to them, and really deploy a plan that makes sense. Because one thing I'm learning is through our work at Indigenized Energy, it's not my goal just to go right into a tribe and be like, okay, let's go take a loan and let's go do renewable energy for tribes that never really have done that before. So a lot of them are going to be really resistant or afraid to take that next step. So how are we going to go about and change that dynamic? Well, I think, with this $136 million we got from EPA Solar for All, we want to leverage that to not just build 200 or 300 solar installations per reservation, but to build 500 or 600 of that. But how do you get to that point, right? I think Indigenized Energy, our thought process around this is that we're not just project based. We want to be programmatic based. So what that means is, what are these tribal communities doing with their cost savings, right? What are they doing with those? Are they saving some of that for a rainy day to take care of the O&M and the insurance? Or what are some of these tribal nations doing with some of those cost savings they do get within these homes? We want to be able to create a program where within each reservation that cost savings is shared. And once we share that model of, that shared savings and creating a revolving fund, then that shows the tribe that, hey, you know what, we actually have some incoming cash flow coming in for the first time ever through economic status. And when we show them how that works, now the tribes are more accepted to be like, you know what, I want to go after more of those IRA dollars now because we're actually generating money through our renewable energy program, right? So those are some of the ways to really encourage tribes, to show them how, not number one, how renewable energy can work and be successful in communities like where I come from, but most importantly, showing them that as the money that you save, we can use some of that money that you save, can attack more initiatives through the IRA to really unlock more of the tribe's wishes of where they see fit through energy sovereignty. Because the more that tribes can get confident in utilizing that IRA and taking those loans, the more it's really going to unlock the capabilities of really allowing tribes to kind of lead the way through this just transition of renewable energy in this country. But not only that, really contribute to the greater grid of America, right? Because we know we use energy more and more every day, and that we just can't get enough resources. Our infrastructure is not really up to date right now through a lot of the utility sides of things. So I think tribes are really in a unique position to take the lead in contributing to more energy in the country. So the more we use within our own capacity within tribal nations, I know we're able to use some of that energy and put it off to the grid for the rest of America to be able to benefit and use as well. But really the challenge here is to really educate the tribes around IRA and what's available to them, but really have them kind of step into a new category of starting to leverage some of these dollars and to really bring in a brighter future for our really future generations within our tribal people. Thanks.
So thank you so much for sharing, both Brett and Cody. So my next question is for Brett. I want to ask is how Navajo Power has developed several projects that are transforming energy access for tribal nations, and how do you ensure these projects provide the economic and social benefits to the communities that you work with?
I will say we don't have any completed projects yet, but we are on the way of getting to there. We're 6 years into our company. We survived the pandemic. We've gotten a lot of momentum and traction. We have a lot of understandings. We started our work in the Navajo Nation really because, one, it's where I come from, but the other is the call to action was really getting loud in terms of needing to do something for the transition. I think, one of the things that we always say is like, communities like the Navajo Nation have been like the batteries for the Southwest, much like Appalachia did the same in the East Coast and Powder River has done the same in the North. For years, there was, power dynamics where our communities became reliant on these things, but the wealth generation wasn't really there in terms of when you looked at, companies exit the fossil fuel industry, they kind of just left deserts and ghost towns, in their wake versus what we envision from what a transition could accomplish, which is helping an economy, replace its economic drivers, helping it develop a dynamic workforce so that it's able to migrate and move industries. Those are all things that we envision with success with our communities and that we're working towards, which takes a little bit longer in the stakeholder engagement piece because success isn't a dollar per acre figure or an IRR in a lot of these communities. It's what tangible things get developed alongside our projects. A lot of people can put solar panels and wind turbines up. That's kind of proven technology and been done widely. What is unique about some of, particularly Navajo Power and a lot of indigenous groups is we're not focused on, solely trying to get, clean, electrons onto a grid system. We're also focused on helping to, rematriate some of these economies that have been impacted negatively by other industries, helping them gain that footing so that they can chart a path in the direction that they want by the economic means. I have a belief in from Navajo Power, we have a belief that economics are one of the reasons that our communities are in distress. These constant concerns around how we're going to capitalize our government and public programs and how homes and families are just going to keep food on the table and the lights on and also work from home. All those are very valid questions in this conversation. We want to work on meaningful solutions that help that, whether that's developing projects in these places so we can bring the workforce home, or also we work on developing these projects that create equity. So there's additional and alternative revenue sources that can be looked at to pledge towards, investment of initiatives that they want to complete. I would say where we've been successful most of all is working with communities and helping them understand the value of these projects, that you cannot give away this land for free, and that just because someone promises something, unless it's in a contract, you need to make sure and ensure that there's going to be follow through and there's going to be those things in place. We believe that us being in that position creates a vacuum of attention towards these things, but also if the accomplishment is that maybe we didn't get to develop a project, they went with another developer, but the threshold for development is so high that the community gets what they need. That's what we're after, is we're after the highest threshold of development so that the community benefit packages that go to these communities is fair, that the development work isn't impeding their ability to function as communities. Like it's not taking land that they use for other things. And the last piece is that we're also looking forward and planning for future opportunities. These things, the Inflation Reduction Act, unfortunately, is we're a year away from it, and that means a year less of it that we can utilize. So if you weren't working on projects years before this, catching up to where a lot of these things, it takes a lot of time and resources, and that's something we also don't want to have happen, which is that we have projects hustled to a finish without being properly done and consulted, because that's what creates these stories about promises under delivered, underperformed, and we don't want to keep contributing that story back to the narrative of how indigenous people interface with energy in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Cody, would you like to share? The question was, how do you ensure these projects provide economic and social benefits to the communities you work with?
Yeah, I think the most important part is ownership, right? As we look at, every project in the past, I know there's been some deals in the past that tribes have made with different other contractors or, you know, corporate type of people that come in and say, well, let us use your land to use wind power or solar power, and then you'll give you the least benefits of it. Or some of them will be like, yeah, well, you'll on the second half of the phase, you're going to take ownership of it after, you know, 20 years after the project's, you know, that far along. And by the time the tribes take ownerships of these projects, you know, they're outdated, or they have to be replaced, or there's a lot of things that happen with them because the benefits of all the project went with the actual developer or the contractor, and the tribe is kind of left with an outdated system by the time they're able to take ownership of it. So I think the IRA really brings that unique opportunity for tribes to take ownership, like I said, of it faster because of that 40 or 50% back, where that really eliminates the need for having to have a developer within tribal nations now, that these tribes can actually take initiative on their own and own these systems a lot more faster than having to go that route, and especially utilizing their own tribal lands to do it, you know, which Brett Isaac said is really important to tribes, is they want to make sure that they're doing things in a responsible way. I just look at it as, you know, there was a big pipeline that was placed a half mile north of my community there. And then we didn't want it, we didn't accept it. But at the same time, if we do the same types of habits with renewable energy approaching tribes, how are we any better than those pipeline companies, right? Because we're still using those same dynamics of doing things in a way that the tribes really don't agree with. So it's really important to make sure that they understand that as the IRA is really in place on some of the opportunities that are really available to them. And so there's a lot of communities right now that we're really, really close on. We work closely with the Menominee Nation. Right now, we with some of their ARPA funding, they bought out some of their own transmissional lines and substations with that. And now for the first time, you know, they own about 20% of their utility out of that. And they're understanding and knowing how to do transactions and different things like that. And you know, moving forward with the IRA, we want to start creating microgrids for every one of their communities. And those microgrids, what that's going to entail is energy sovereignty for every one of their 5 communities on their reservation through Menominee, which we're really excited about, on how the IRA can really help that tribe move forward in the direction of really becoming energy sovereign. Another tribe that we're working with is right here in North Dakota, the MHA Nation. You know, there's a community called the White Shield community there. Same type of dynamic. Some of these co-ops are really being resistant in places of the Northern Plains, because the Northern Plains are, I would say statistically, if you really look at it, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, which is a lot of the areas we service, they're really dead last in solar energy. But there's reasons for that. Is because they're really resistant up here. The state that I come from is the second leading fossil fuel state in the country, behind Texas. So really, we are at really ground zero up here in the Northern Plains. For that reason, we have a lot more barriers to overcome. But that doesn't discourage us, because we know that, you know, the tribes have a unique opportunity within their own sovereign lands to really push that narrative of energy sovereignty and the way they see fit. And we're really encouraging tribes to take that step of utilizing the IRA, but starting to take over their own energy systems as we move forward. And White Shield is one of those communities that's also ready to take that next step of starting to be their own power developer there, and buying and selling their own energy within their own community on the reservation. So us at Indigenize Energy are supporting their efforts to that. We also have some great things going on in Montana there with the Northern Cheyenne community. We built the first 15 residential solar systems for that community there that went directly towards the elders, and we're looking to build 70 more just with an original DOE grant that we had there. And then with Solar for All, we're going to put another 200 or 300 more in that community. So that community there is kind of leading the way on those programmatic efforts that we're talking about there, Alyssa, of showing how they can really capture the savings within those communities and inject and use that for more IRA initiatives to leverage more of those dollars within their community. So there's all kinds of different examples of what's going on and what we're doing here within Indigenize Energy, and how the IRA is really being incorporated right now. But we're really excited about the opportunity for these tribes to really start to dig in and really hone in on that. And I will say though that some of the tribes that we service are really at the beginning stages of that. So what's Brett saying is sometimes maybe we're a year out from some of those tribes taking advantage of that, where some tribes right now are ready to take a loan through a native CDFI or a CDFI network right now, which we're currently looking towards right now for some of our projects, is to hone in on leveraging some of these projects within these tribal communities. Some tribes right now are ready to take that next step. So every tribe is really at a different phase right now, but it's really up to Indigenized Energy and places like Navajo Power to make sure that we inform our tribal leaders on what's really there for them to really take advantage of, and what are they really to trust at this point, and how can we help them support them to get them to that point where they're ready to deploy and utilize the IRA. So us at Indigenized Energy, like I said, we've have examples of the IRA, but we also have examples of still getting people to understand the IRA process, which is a big undertaking in itself. So there's kind of a variety of different avenues on what we're working on when we talk about the IRA.
You two are doing really incredible, impactful work, and I really appreciate you sharing. The last question for me, I'm gonna pose now, and once we get answers from you two, I'll open it up to the rest of the participants, the reporters on the other side. But the question for me is, how is the outcome of the 2024 election expected to impact energy development in Indigenous communities? And I will allow either Brett or Cody to.
I guess I'll kick it off. These Indigenous people, like, one thing we're used to is things not going our way or things going our way. It's, we want to see progress and we want to see things, and we are definitely watching what happens, because there are some concerns with how investments will be treated. That being said, whatever happens, we're going to pivot and we're going to get serious about finding solutions. And I think that could be, continuing the momentum that's built off of these acts, or, advocating for ones that are that are different and maybe prioritize. I think the other thing that we've started to realize, I mean, just kind of a look at Indigenous communities, like, scarcity is not new to us. Like, a lot of our communities have dealt with very little for a long time and had to figure out how to build up their wherewithal. I started a company very similarly. Navajo Power started from really just a ground level idea, and we built and raised ourselves into the form that we are now, and we will continue to build and do that. I think one experience we have, and one fear that I've kind of overcome personally, is this idea that we are not in control of the outcome of what happens. I think giving into that with elections is this idea that it could become more arduous. That being said, energy is something that's needed by all, and I believe the technology benefits you regardless of whatever partisan side you may wear on your sleeve, or whatever belief system you come from. Is that the technology speaks for itself. What is going to be a challenge is continuing to keep advocating for Indigenous people in these spaces, and also doing it in a way that honors what we've done in contributions to the creation of this country. I think that's one of the reasons why, I was appointed to the White House, President Export Council, under this administration. I've been helping advise, the federal government on international trade. And part of that involvement is doing everything I can possibly do to advocate for my communities and, the communities that we serve. And I think that's the part that I really encourage, is being involved, being knowledgeable, understanding the situation, and understanding that with every single challenge, and we learned this in the development world, is things look bleak a lot of times. They look like they're not going to work a lot of times, and you have to get used to that perception that this is very difficult and resource intense work. But as long as you keep a momentum on the innovation and trying and keep that fire stoked to do something, I think regardless of what happens in the election, we will figure out a solution. Now, that being all said, we do monitor it very closely because of the way that the decision makers position themselves. They're telling us everything that they want to do today, and we need to listen to that. We need to listen to what they're saying about how they want to carry these initiatives forward past 2025. That's an important factor to make a decision, because some of our livelihoods, some of our initiatives all depend on that, and we got to get out and advocate. And I really want to encourage that. We can't keep playing one side or the other. All of us are in the same boat, and we all got to get to the same direction, which is a cleaner, safer, more equitable economy, a more equitable energy system. And so I tend to like err on the side of like, I am cautious about what the things that are happening, and very cautious about how I talk about it. And it's really because I want to encourage, those that are not sitting aside me or along with me on this journey to understand why I'm doing it and what the reasoning is for, and how I hope that it benefits them too. I hope that this solar and battery and wind and everything that we're doing brings down the cost of energy for them, that it benefits their communities, that it creates a healthy environment for them, and that's all the wish is. So that being said, yeah, we're concerned, but we're not gonna we're not gonna chicken little the idea that it could totally upend everything. That could happen with a number of things going on in the world right now, but we want to focus on building solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Cody, the question was, how do you ensure these, let's see. No, the question was, how is the outcome of the 2024 election expected to impact energy development in Indigenous communities?
I think it's going to impact it significantly. Obviously, the Biden and Harris administration have been really champions for renewable energy and green energy. There's been historic amounts of money that's been passed through legislation like the IRA and EPA, Solar for All, $7 billion, no match. There's a lot of historic amounts of money that's really been poured into this space in the last 4 years. So it's really going to have a big impact on what's going to happen moving forward in this election. But just to kind of talk a little bit more about election and politics, in the past, we always talked a lot about climate change, and that's really, that really follows in line with who we are as Native people. Our traditional customs and who we are as Native people is to protect the land, protect the environment. So, this pathway of green technology and green energies and really falls right in line with who we are as a people. So it makes sense for us to really hone in on it, learn about it, and really take the lead in how this stuff can really be incorporated in the country that we live in today. We just look at what's happening in Florida, the last 2 weeks, including the last, 24 hours, 2 historic hurricanes that went through an area that's just really left people in shambles. And it's really unprecedented in what's happening there. The climate is changing around us every single day. And I know, politics, I look at it as politics. Climate change is a political thing. Some people don't believe in climate change. Some people do. But now as we move forward into this new way of politics, to me, I don't really, even though I know my intention is to always protect the climate and the environment, but when I go and approach new people that are really not open-minded about that, I just teach them about the economics now of renewable energy, right? Like and I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, right? Who doesn't want to save money in the cheapest form of renewable energy? Who doesn't want to do that, right? So as you really introduce it to, like in parts where I come from, we're really a red state, and at like 70% to 30%, they're Republican here. And when I go and start talking to the farmers and different things like that in the area and the ranchers, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need to share about the climate change part of it, but I can share with them about the economics. And then all of a sudden they start to buy in and like, wow, I want to know more about how I can utilize renewable energy to save more money within my ranch or anything that we do. And these are hardcore Republicans that are talking to me and talking this way, right? So really, I just look at it as renewable energy and green technology and green energy now, because solar energy really is the cheapest form of energy. anywhere in the world now. I look at that as an economic opportunity for us as tribal nations to say, hey, you know what? Not only does it protect the environment and help us, but it's also a way to start to engage of talking about how we can take over energy structures within our own communities and doing that in that way. So I really approach it a lot of times too as just economic basis, and and I really feel like this topic should not be in politics, but unfortunately it is, because it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's going to save you money. And people always want to save money because you look at what's happening with inflation right now, food costs, gas prices. I mean, you name it. Like, it's really difficult just to make it day to day with a lot of families right now in America. So, by introducing them ways and creative ways on how to save money, I think that's really the important piece behind this, and why this election is going to be important. But I got involved in some political campaigns in the past using with Climate Power. I know they're a national campaign people that really push the IRA. We're going to be releasing something through our organization through dream.org, which is Green for All, which I know Van Jones was a big part of that, rolling that out, but now it's dream.org. So, Indigenized Energy has been really supporting a lot of those campaign efforts around why the IRA is important, how is it impacting our communities, how is it helping us, and then most importantly, why we need to keep it going in the next several years, and how politics should not get in the way of really allowing people really at these low income status communities to flourish and show them examples of how it's working. So I think that's really the most important part of my work too, is to really advocate, to show people from some of these communities how it's working and how it can really benefit not just us but everybody, and show them that the IRA is working and that it should not change regardless of who gets into office here in the next couple months. I just want to make sure that if we can keep the IRA going, I think that's really the big push for me to do whatever I can from my perspective to make sure that stays in place. And however I can support that, I will definitely do that. But that's just some of the challenges that I've seen on why um, politics kind of gets in the way of some things that really shouldn't be in the way, because right now is the time to save money any way we can because of the inflation that's happening around us that's really impacting a lot of our communities. So thanks.
Great. Thank you both for your thoughtful answers. I'm now going to open the floor to anyone in the audience that would like to ask a question to either Brett or Cody. You feel free to raise your hands or use the Q&A function to type in your question, but I'll give it a couple of minutes here. And Brett and Cody, as we wait for any questions that the audience might have to come in, do either of you have anything you'd like to touch on that maybe I didn't ask about, or something that you've been wanting to share with folks for a while now, and we have some time now if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll add a couple things. I think right now we're really in a unique position as tribal nations, but even just in this country. But we have some unique opportunities there. I would consider this as being like the wild west of renewable energy right now, because there's so much opportunities, especially for tribes. And I just want to make sure that I encourage everybody to not be so focused on just deploying so much projects into a tribe that would cause them problems. I really want people to start to focus on not just the bottom line, but also making sure that these are sustainable as we continue to develop all this infrastructure in Indian country. Because when you're really talking about unloading a lot of dollars and millions of dollars into these communities, what I'm seeing in the past, and just from my experience of growing up in the community that I grew up in, is there's a lot of great people with a lot of great hearts and a lot of philanthropy that came into our community, but it was more of like a parachute in type of thing where they come in and they do a project and they leave, and then what happens is there's no capacity building that's going on in these communities, to the point where when something goes wrong, these communities ain't gonna have money in their coffers to go say, okay, well, who's gonna go and fix it? Who's gonna take care of the O&M? Where is the insurance gonna come from? Are we educated enough to be able to sustain it on our own? So those are really the big questions that I would really ask a lot of people out there in this space to really, really respect and know that, even though there's a lot of great opportunity out there for us to really hone in on a lot of this great stuff and take advantage of, I just really ask that we do that in a respectful way. You know what I mean? And really look after these tribes and look after ourselves and really asking these questions, because I just don't want it to be just project based only. We really have to make sure we hone in on that sustainability model that makes sense for every tribe, so that can not just bring a burden to them, but bring success to them, and it allows them to really unlock more opportunity and more renewable energy and utilizing our IRA even more as we move forward. And I think that's some of the things that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, is just to make sure that we're creating sustainable models with everything we do with tribal nations. Because I think, like Brett said it best too, it's easy to build solar, it's easy to put up wind turbines. The really the challenge is to make it financially viable, and to make sure that we're setting up tribes for success. And how do you do that in low income status communities? And that's really the big challenge. Is there's so much money out there for low income status communities, but yet still have cracked that nut to say, well, how can we just do one or two things and then build on that and really make it flourish? So I think that's something here at Indigenize Energy that we're really, really focusing on. Even though we're really good at doing projects, we just want to make sure that we're looking after the tribes in that way too, that we're not deploying something that they're not ready for either, and do things in a irresponsible way. Because then again, I'll say it again, then we'll be no better than these pipelines that's been doing work around us. So we really have to look after each other and really ask those questions. And technical assistance is really the big part of that process too, on helping tribes really understand what energy looks like, because it's a whole new language in itself. So I just wanted to throw those couple comments out there for you there, Alyssa, that as there's a lot of opportunity, we just want to make sure that we're using that opportunity in the right way, in the respectful way as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Brett, is there anything you'd like to share as we are coming close to the end?
Yeah, one thing I just like to add is just kind of a primer for our media folks is, tribal governments and its people are two separate things too. Community and government is not always the same body or the same person. Like there are initiatives and things that we're focused on that are like one thing that we want to help the federal government understand is that like giving to our governments is great, making things available for them, but that doesn't always ensure that deployment makes it to the people, makes it to the folks that need it, to the services that are underfunded, things like that. What we're trying to do, and with something from Navajo Power is, as an example, is we're trying to find solutions that are on the ground that reflect like a change in situation. And one thing I'll just kind of point out is, our Navajo Power Home Initiative powers homes, for folks that haven't ever had electricity in their lifetimes. One of our employees is a former coal. He operated the coal chutes for the coal train that was transporting coal in the Navajo Nation. He's an elder Navajo man that is an electrician. We brought him on to help, essentially apprentice some of the younger Navajo tradesmen that need to understand not only how to work in their communities, better in terms of working with different, families and different rural areas, but also the importance of what it's like to work in building something that contributes back to your community. I think one of the things that I heard from him is that he was very proud of his work. He worked a lifetime. He put his kids through school. The economics for him were good, but when he reflected back on what it left him with is just stories. And he, what I was telling him is that we're also working on trying to change the narrative around wealth building, this idea that wealth is created somewhere else because all this money goes somewhere. It goes into some things. And a lot of the ways that these things are financed are outside the boundaries of our communities. We're trying to make sure that as much of the economic value that can stay, whether it's in wages, it's in taxes and revenues. Those are all tangible strategies that change, again, situations on the ground is what we're focused on. So I just want to make sure that that's understood, is like, just because our governments announce a big pool of funding doesn't mean that it makes it automatically to the pockets of the people who need it the most. And we still got to work to do on that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. The amount of resources it takes to deploy the resources is unsurmountable. And I want to thank you both so much for your time. CE4A values your time so much, and we want to thank the participants for joining us today. I know we've recorded this call, so we have some reporters that would like a recording of it. I'm going to share it with both yourself, Brett, and Cody. But again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was incredibly informative, and I learned a lot myself. So I really appreciate it, and thank you again. So I will end the call now, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.